Welcome to the ID Den podcast, the show for teachers ready to step outside the classroom and into their next chapter. I'm your host, Charity Bosch, and I know firsthand how overwhelming it can feel to leave teaching behind. Whether you're exploring instructional design, navigating corporate culture, or just figuring out your first steps, this show is your roadmap. Each episode will tackle the real challenges, share practical strategies, and prove that your teaching skills are exactly what the world needs, just in a different setting. Let's turn that classroom expertise into your career advantage. In today's episode, we are going to go through an overview of popular ID tools and software. Now, one thing to keep in mind as we go through this is that, yes, tools do matter, but probably not as much as you think they do. So tools are there to help enable your instructional design thinking. And your instructional design thinking and skills are way more important and valuable than any sort of tool because, let's be honest, there's a lot of different tools out there that do the same thing. There's only one you and your instructional design thinking. So don't let tool anxiety stop you from getting started because I promise you it's really not that big of a deal. Most companies are going to train you on their specific tools. They're just going to want a general understanding of what the different categories of tools are. And then they'll help make sure that if you don't have experience in their tools, which if you're starting out transitioning for the first time, you won't, that you are able to get up to speed on what they specifically use because different companies use different tools. So focus on the principles first. The tools come second and are there to support you as the instructional designer. And you are probably already using some things without even realizing that you're using instructional design tools. So first, let's dive into what the different categories are. So instructional design tools can be kind of lumped together in a few different categories. And the first one that I want to talk about is course authoring tools. Course authoring tools are used to create e-learning courses, and there are a few out there, but there are definitely some that are more well-known and that you will see a lot in job descriptions. Learning management systems, or LMSs, are what you use to deliver learning, whether that's e-learning or to track instructor-led training. Most, hopefully all at this point, learning management systems are going to do both. And there are, oh my gosh, thousands of these systems out there. So again, this is one category in particular where the market is so saturated. Do not feel like you have to be an expert in particular LMSs. We'll dive into this a little bit more later, but it's a huge category. Then we get into graphic and design software for those visual elements within your training. You do not have to be a graphic designer to be a successful instructional designer. And some companies will have a completely separate graphic design team. I worked in them that do all of that for you. Some companies, I've worked in them, do not have that kind of a team on hand. And so you are going to be responsible for that. So it's good to know about some of those tools. Video and audio editing for multimedia, whether you're doing screen recordings of a software or part of your e-learning is you presenting something and your face is going to be on camera. You are going to need to know some video and audio editing tools to do your work. Then we have things like project management tools for your workflow and assessment and survey tools for evaluation. So there's quite a lot that instructional designers use. But again, your instructional design skills and those principles, those frameworks, all of those things are going to be way more important than any tool that you're using. So focus on building those skills up and then focus on the tools second. Let's dive into the first category, course authoring tools. These are the heart of any e-learning creation. You cannot create an e-learning course without using a course authoring tool. Asterisk, you technically could use, most LMSs come with a in-platform course authoring tool thing. Highly advise against using that for various reasons that I will probably do an entire episode on at some point. Some people are of the opposite mind. They don't like course authoring tools. They advise you to build within the LMS. Again, I don't advise that. It's not portable. I have worked with too many companies that needed to switch LMSs, and if they have everything built within the LMS, it is a huge headache. So there's some accessibility things that can be better building natively within an LMS, but I feel the trade-off is not worth it in my personal experience. So course authoring tools, what do they do? Course authoring tools are what are going to take your instructional design brilliance and turn them into the interactive e-learning courses that you have had to take. I guarantee it, you've taken e-learning courses, and they range from super simple to super complex. Most of them do have free trials. So I mentioned this in the portfolio paralysis episode. Take advantage of those free trials when you are working on building your portfolio. However, you don't need to master them all. Pick one and go deep. My personal go-to is Articulate 360 Suite. It is the industry standard for a good reason. They have been the top for a very long time. I don't know of any instructional designer that hasn't used them and know them well. There are some alternatives and competitors that I'll go into very minimally later on in this segment. But Articulate 360, it's the creme de la creme for a reason. They do have a few different offerings within the suite. So a lot of times you'll hear things like Rise or Storyline. Those are both part of the Articulate 360 suite. Most of the times we don't say things like Articulate 360 suite. We'll say Rise or Storyline. However, when you are looking at job descriptions, you will most likely see Articulate referenced. And so you need to understand that the Articulate 360 suite is comprised of a few different softwares. The first one that you're going to hear a lot is Rise, Articulate Rise, and that is their rapid, responsive e-learning development. So very plug and play, very simple. There's not a whole lot of complex things that you're going to be doing within Rise. It flows kind of top to bottom. It's not like a PowerPoint slide deck. You've probably taken some e-learnings that have been built with Rise. It's kind of like you scroll through, click next, scroll through, click next type of thing versus read the slide, click the arrow, read the slide, click the arrow. That's different. That's Storyline. So Storyline is their more advanced and custom design e-learning platform. So I use both. There have been so many times where I use Rise for the bulk of the course because it is so quick and it is so easy and it is very responsive and has a lot of like design built in, things like that. It will automatically change different things within the course if you're viewing it on a mobile phone versus within the browser, whereas Storyline's more complex. You're going to have to kind of build all of that stuff in yourself. There is a little bit that happens automatically, but it's a lot more like, I think of Storyline as a blank PowerPoint. That's very close to what it actually is, where you have to build everything, whereas Rise has templates and different things that you can choose from. So in a lot of courses that I've created, I will use Rise as my base and I will build most of it in Rise. But when I need something more complex, like a branching scenario, I'll go and build that in Storyline. And what's nice, because it is part of the same suite, is you can then bring Storyline components into Rise and embed them. The user's taking the course through the LMS, obviously, but they're taking the course through the Rise platform and user interface, but you can bring some of those more advanced Storyline components into that. So it doesn't feel like you're bouncing around. It's embedded within it. And so that is a strategy that I use often when I need something that's more complex than Rise can build. I'll go to Storyline, build just that component out there, and then import it into Rise. Then they also have another super helpful tool within the suite called Review 360, which is where you can send your e-learning courses to your SMEs, to your stakeholders, whoever you need to work with. Sometimes you're collaborating with fellow instructional designers, and that's where you can gather that feedback that you can then use to make revisions to the course as you go through the process. I love this combination. It's very intuitive. Storyline is very complex. There is a learning curve there. There's a lot that's there to offer. And I will say I haven't even been able to fully utilize it to its full capacity, but it's very easy to learn, very intuitive. And I love how all of the different aspects of the suite fit together very nicely. It's a very cohesive thing. I have found that people that have never reviewed an e-learning course have no problem diving right into Review 360 and leaving their comments. There's a little bit of like, oh, hey, just keep in mind this, and this, whatever. But for the most part, it's super easy for someone who's never done anything like this before to pick up and learn. It's a very manageable learning curve for both the instructional designer and any sort of collaborators, SMEs, stakeholders, that sort of thing. They also have a really great community and support team. So they have the e-learning heroes community where instructional designers can go on, post to like message boards, things like that, give each other feedback, tips. It's just really great. They also have through e-learning heroes some like little trainings and things that you can take to help you learn. So I've tried, I don't know, I want to say all of the course authoring tools, but I'm sure there's some out there that I've never even heard of. But I have tried all of the main ones, and by far, Articulate 360 Suite is my favorite and the one that I would recommend starting with. There are other popular options out there. Adobe Captivate is one. It is also very powerful, but I liken it more to Storyline. They technically have like a rapid responsive development type thing. I don't like it. It feels very limiting, and there's definitely a steeper learning curve with it. I had been using Articulate for years, and then I went to Adobe Captivate to try it out, and I struggled. So I will say it is definitely powerful. I know a lot of places use it. A lot of people like it. I personally don't. I feel like it is more clunky, more complex. It's not as intuitive, and there's definitely a steeper learning curve. Another popular one is iSpring. A lot of people like iSpring. I find it very limiting. It's basically a PowerPoint add-on. So you're building the e-learning within PowerPoint using the add-on features that iSpring brings into the PowerPoint software. So first of all, you have to have PowerPoint. If you don't have PowerPoint, you can't use iSpring. So it's like you have to have double the software in order to use it. But regardless, I find it very limiting. Again, it doesn't offer that rapid plug and play template type style that Articulate Rise does because it's literally a blank slate. You're starting with PowerPoint, blank PowerPoint slides. So I have used it, not my favorite. I find it very limiting. Another one is Domino. They are fairly comparable to Articulate, but I feel like it's more complex. I feel like Domino is a little bit like if Articulate Suite and Captivate had a baby. So it's a little bit less complex and nuanced, I think personally, as Captivate, but it's definitely more complex, more clunky, felt a bit more outdated to Articulate. So it is another one. It's newer, I think. At least I've only recently started hearing about it more, like through LinkedIn and through other really well-known instructional designers. Megan Torrance was actually who introduced me to Domino, but I didn't particularly enjoy my experience when I was trying it out. So I go back to Articulate. It's my tried and true. The next kind of grouping I want to talk about are the graphic and design tools that you can use. So helping you make things look more professional and polished and on brand, all of those sorts of things. And again, you don't need to be a graphic designer. I don't want you to feel like, oh gosh, I have to learn instructional design and I have to learn graphic design. No, no, no. You just need to know the bare minimum, and consistency is going to matter more than complexity. If you have a cohesive look and feel between the slide deck and the instructor manual and the student workbook within an instructor-led training, then it just helps reduce kind of the visual clutter and makes things more simpler for like the instructor. If everything looks different, it's really hard to follow along, and it's hard to, you get distracted by things. So it just makes things a little bit more streamlined. And then also stock photos and templates are going to be your best friend. So the first tool I want to talk about in this category is Canva. And I have seen a lot of teachers using Canva, which is great. In fact, my local school district has a suite of licenses. I don't even know how it works, but all of the teachers have access to Canva within their single sign-on system. So even me, when I am a sub in my district, I have access to Canva. I don't use it. I use my own personal license. I don't use that. But I did think that that was really cool to see that the district brought that on board so that you can create your own worksheets. You can create, all of those sorts of different things. So I feel like Canva is also pretty familiar to a lot of teachers out there. There's templates for everything within Canva. When you have the paid version, you can create brand kits that help keep you consistent, help make sure that when it comes to companies and their branding, there are very specific hex codes, colors that are used. So you might look at something and think, oh, like my logo, right? I have a lot of purple in my logo. There's different shades of purple. You can't just go and pick just random purples and you're going to match my logo. There's specific hex codes. So creating brand kits helps make sure that you stay consistent and are following those brand guidelines. Same things with fonts. I have very specific fonts that I use within my company. And so it's nice to create those brand kits so that when you're working, you can keep everything consistent and on brand. There's also a lot of easy collaboration features within Canva that feel quite similar to like Articulate. To me, it's kind of a nice, they balance, they work together really well. I'm not saying they integrate, but there's just a lot of intuitiveness that comes with both platforms. The free version of Canva does get you pretty far. So don't feel like you have to, oh gosh, something you have to pay for just to get a job. You can totally work within the free version as you're applying for jobs and doing things like that. You might not even end up using Canva when you get into a job. Again, you might have a whole graphics team that's on salary with the company that you have access to help you create things. But if you don't have that, or if you're trying to create portfolio items, the free version of Canva is going to be just fine. It's perfect for creating job aids, infographics that you can embed into your e-learning or instructor-led courses, social learning content. It's also great for building out instructor manuals, worksheets, student workbooks, assessments, all those sorts of things to make sure everything looks really nice, polished, professional, and is also on brand. Some other design tools within the category of Canva are Adobe Creative Suite if you want to go pro. I am credentialed within Adobe Creative Suite. I've done certificate programs for Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign. I will tell you, I go to Canva. I might know how to use the tools within Adobe Creative Suite, but it's definitely more advanced. It definitely requires more time for what I need. Canva is plenty sufficient. And Adobe Creative Suite is also expensive. If you're looking for stock assets, Unsplash or Pexels is a great place to get those stock images that are royalty free. You don't have to worry about copyright infringement. The Noun Project is great if you're looking for more like icons and simple graphics rather than pictures, images, and those are some also helpful tools. The other kind of facet within this category of design tools is video and audio. So you're bringing your content to life. Video doesn't have to be scary. Screen recordings are super valuable, especially if you're working on a software training, because you can literally show people through a screen recording what they need to be able to do, where to find things, all of that. And in most cases, your audio quality is going to matter more than your video quality because with a lot of screen recordings, what's being shown is the software, not you. So it's important to make sure that you are sounding clear, you can be heard well, all of those sorts of things. I personally use Camtasia and I combine that with Audiate for my video workflow. So Camtasia is the screen recording and video editing side of things. Audiate allows you to edit the audio, and it's actually pretty cool because since it is part of the same suite as Camtasia, you can edit your video by editing the text within Audiate. So you can remove all of those ums and pauses and things like that in Audiate, and it will sync with Camtasia to remove the video components of those things there. But oftentimes when I am doing screen recording, I will use Audiate to make sure that I sound good after I'm done with that recording. Everything's clear. You don't hear any of the background noise. Right now I have a lot of house construction going on around me. We live in a neighborhood that's still building out. And so it's nice to be able to dampen all of the hammers and those sorts of tools being used in my background. So it is great software for training and demonstrations. It is also great software if you do need to film yourself in addition to like a PowerPoint slide deck or something like that. And so you can do that within Camtasia as well. There's a lot of built-in templates and effects. There's some, especially when it comes to Audiate, different editing for the audio side of things. Like, oh, I want to get rid of my background noise. You don't have to manually play around with different ticker things. You can just click the pre-built effects that will automatically filter out all of that stuff for you. It also exports directly to video or interactive formats. Another thing that I use that's within the Camtasia Audiate suite and company, TechSmith is who creates all of those tools, is Snagit. So this is your screenshot companion, but it's more than just screenshots. So within Snagit, you can take the screenshot that you need, obviously. I have done plenty of situations where, oh shoot, my mouse cursor is still in the shot. You can remove that after you take the shot. You can add boxes, you can add numbers, you can add all sorts of different things. And it helps create job aids and quick tutorials that are static and not video. You can add annotations and callouts and text, and you can do a scrolling capture for longer web pages. You can create GIFs for micro learning. There's a lot that you can do with Snagit. And so that is another tool that I use. So I would say for the graphic, video, audio category, Canva, Camtasia with Audiate, and Snagit are kind of like that's the suite that I use to make sure that my work looks polished and professional and on brand. The next category I want to dive into are those learning management systems that I mentioned earlier. LMSs is what we call them for short. This is your delivery platform. This is where your courses live and your learners are going to access and complete them. Many companies already have an LMS. However, I have worked for and with plenty of companies that don't. My second corporate instructional design job was with a startup. They didn't have one. So I got to have the fun experience of finding and implementing one. And I have helped other companies do the same thing. But in most established companies, they're already going to have one. When it comes to LMSs, as I mentioned earlier in this episode, there are thousands. So I want you to focus on understanding the capabilities of LMSs and not mastering the administration of LMSs. Because you could say, like, I personally am an expert with Absorb, Cornerstone, Docebo, Tavuti. I am an expert on quite a few. However, again, there are thousands out there that I haven't even touched. There are some that I have touched very minimally and I wouldn't consider myself an expert on. But when it comes to LMSs, there is a lot that is different about them. But when you take all of those differences away, what they're built on is the same thing. It doesn't matter what LMS is, it's all basically the same thing. There's just little nuances between them that you have to learn. So I'm not going to dive into a specific one, kind of like I did with the other categories here. I'm just going to tell you some of the popular options. When it comes to higher education, especially like universities, Moodle, Canvas, Blackboard, those are really popular. If you're applying to higher education jobs, you're probably going to see that they're going to want someone who is an expert or knows that. Please don't let that deter you. Still apply for the job. As long as you understand the basics of LMSs, you're going to be fine. You can learn the specifics and the nuance once you get into the job. Some popular ones in the corporate world are Cornerstone, On Demand, Docebo, Absorb. Those are kind of the big three, I would say. But again, there's thousands more out there. And I will say LMS companies pop up way more than any sort of other category that we've discussed here so far. So there's way more LMSs than there are course authoring tools. And there's way more LMSs being created every single day, it feels, than there are course authoring tools being created every single day. So understand the basics, understand the general underlying components of learning management systems, and you'll be just fine. Another area that I want to talk about that I feel gets overlooked often is project management. So keeping everything organized, keeping yourself on track, keeping your to-do list, all of those sorts of things falls within that project management area. Instructional design projects have lots of moving parts, especially when you think about SMEs and stakeholders, and if you're collaborating with other instructional designers. That stakeholder management is crucial. They're going to want to know how percentages, how much is complete, how much is left. They're going to want to know timelines. How are we on track to meet our deadline? All of those sorts of things. And so using project management tools is going to help you stay on top of that thing. Timeline tracking also helps prevent scope creep. You are going to have situations where somebody tries to add something in at the 11th, and being able to speak to the timeline and speak to what's been done and how it impacts what's already been done is going to help you manage that scope creep and hopefully put the kibosh on it. So some popular tools in this category are Asana, Monday.com, Trello, even as simple as Google Sheets. My personal favorite that I use both professionally and personally is Monday.com. Again, super easy, intuitive. It doesn't have a huge learning curve. I like the functionality of it. It's less of a project management tool. They don't market themselves as that. They market themselves as a work management tool. So it kind of goes beyond just tracking projects and tasks. There's a lot more that comes with Monday.com. So I think you get more bang for your buck. But when it comes to freelancing, or you're just trying to build your portfolio, you don't need to spend the money on that. It is a cost, but it is good to be aware because a lot of companies are going to use at least one of those tools internally. So being aware of what they are, knowing a little bit about them, knowing a little bit about this category is going to help you when it comes to applying for those jobs, reading those job descriptions, and speaking to things within your interviews. The next and kind of final category I would say that I want to talk about is assessment and survey tools. So, measuring your impact. Now, a lot of assessment is going to happen in e learning. You're going to build that in your course authoring tool or the LMS. But sometimes you want to have a more generalized survey. And yeah, you could probably build that out in the LMS. But again, when I'm looking at portability and the ease of taking data from one LMS to another, it is nice to have some sort of external survey tool that you're using for those sorts of things so that when you move, you don't lose all your data. Technically, you won't lose your data. They'll give it to you, but it's not in a friendly format, I will say. So having it in something that is more portable, something that you don't lose your data in a meaningful way, it's nice. So you can have those built-in quiz tools versus specialized platforms that are made for that, like Qualtrics. It also helps you use those survey tools for that Kirkpatrick level 1 feedback. Just getting generalized feedback on the course. Did you like it? Did you feel that you could master the learning outcomes after that kind of survey versus like assessment questions? Like you can use survey tools kind of for both, but I do advise if you're going to be building an assessment, whether that's an informal knowledge check throughout the course or that kind of final assessment for the course, you are going to use the course authoring tool. You're going to use probably some sort of paper and pen if it's instructor-led type of an assessment. But for the more feedbacky type stuff, then you're going to be looking at things like SurveyMonkey, Google Forms, or my personal favorite, Typeform. Integration capabilities do matter. So like I like Typeform. It integrates with Monday.com really nicely. And so I'm able to kind of sync that data and manipulate it how I need to visually to report on things through Monday. So that's something else to consider. Again, not saying you need to master any of those tools. It's more building the awareness and understanding because you might see things like that mentioned on job descriptions or brought up during the interview process. I want to make sure that you're able to speak well to those things. So we've gone over the categories. We've gone over some examples. I've let you know what my personal favorites are. What do you do now? So when you're looking at the tool selection strategy, start with what your target companies use. If there are specific companies that you'd like to work for, do some research, look at past job descriptions, current job descriptions, and see what they use and focus your efforts on learning based off of that information. Free trials are going to be your friend. Most, if not all, of these options are going to offer free trials. Keep in mind for things like course authoring tools to build out portfolio pieces, wait to start the free trial until you're at a place in your instructional design process that you're ready to build, because you don't want to run out of time because you started your free trial, but you weren't ready to build yet. And then you have to start another free trial with another email address, and that kind of mess can get really frustrating. So make sure that before you start free trials like the course authoring tools where you're trying to build a portfolio piece rather than just research and learn, that you wait until you're actually ready to use the tool before you start that free trial. Don't try to learn everything at once. Master one category at a time and then move on to the next. I would say course authoring tools, LMSs are going to be the two main ones when it comes to instructional design jobs. You want to make sure that you have a good understanding and some experience with it. LMSs, you're not doing free trials. You're not going to be able to go. I mean, sometimes you can get a free trial through the website without having to talk to a salesperson and go through a rigmarole. But for most of these companies, they don't want to take the time to spin up it's called a trial instance for someone just trying to learn. You're going to have to do your learning through watching videos, tutorials, those video demos on websites, those sorts of things. Don't worry about trying to sign up for a trial of any sort of LMS. I will say the one thing you could do if you wanted to really is sign up for the free version of Talent LMS. They offer a free version for up to 5 users that has pretty much the full capability. If you wanted to really like dig into an LMS and like really try it out and like build a portfolio piece with Articulate and then go put the SCORM package into Talent and like test out what it actually looks like. That's super easy to do, and you don't have to pay a penny, and you can have it almost forever. So, Talent LMS is a good one if you're trying to kind of sink your teeth into LMSs without having to deal with all of the sales nonsense that comes with almost any other LMS that's out there. Some common tool mistakes that I see is trying to learn every tool before you apply. Don't feel like you need to know all of this stuff before you can click that apply button. Apply and learn at the same time. The application process, the interview process, the job market right now is so nutty that you have plenty of time, I promise you, to be learning as you're applying. So don't feel like you have to learn everything before you can start applying. Apply while you learn. You want to make sure that when you're looking at tools, you're thinking through features that you will use. Some things seem flashy and exciting, like, oh, we have AI built in that can build a whole course for you and you don't have to lift a finger. Like, you're never going to use that. Doesn't build anything good. That's where your expertise and your skill comes in. So make sure that you are choosing tools based on the features you will use. It's a big no-no to choose them based on features you're never going to actually use. So look for practicality over flash and excitement. Another mistake I see is ignoring collaboration and sharing capabilities. You want to make sure that any tool that you use offers some sort of collaborating and sharing capability. If it doesn't, it's going to make your life so much more difficult that it's not worth your time looking into. And make sure that you're not having perfectionism prevent you from getting started. Much like the portfolio paralysis episode, it can feel very daunting to dive into these tools, and your perfectionist teacher tendencies can start coming out. That then leads to the procrastination and stalling. Don't fall into that trap. Just pick something up one thing at a time and get going, and don't let yourself fall into the trap of stalling because you want to do everything perfect and it prevents you from getting started in the first place. Build your tool skills strategically. Again, I would recommend picking one course authoring tool. My recommendation would be the Articulate 360 suite, and get comfortable with it once you're at a place with a couple courses that you can start building out. Learn basic graphic design principles and then take a look at things in Canva. Don't go straight to Adobe Creative Suite. Start with those things that are easier, that you can use right away without a whole bunch of training to go through just for that one tool. Practice screen recording for software training, even if you do it just with Canva. Create a few tutorial videos. Check out your audio system. Are you set up for success? And then make sure that when you're doing the trials of all these tools, you're taking advantage of the ones that make sense to create those simple portfolio pieces so that you're making the most of your time. You don't want to just start playing around in Canva for the heck of it. Go in with intention and purpose to build out something that you can use then to land those jobs or those freelance gigs and clients. And make sure that you're documenting your learning process, something that I wish I had done very early on, especially in my freelance career, but within the organizations I worked for as well, was to start documenting my processes. Even if they change, just document everything so that you have that to go from and you're not starting at square one with that stuff. The reality check I want to end this episode on is that tools change constantly in this industry, all the time. As I mentioned before, LMS systems are being added all the time. Feels like pretty much every day. So don't feel like you have to be a master of all of these tools, of all of these different companies. Your learning ability matters way more than the flashy thing that's going on right now. Your teaching background is going to help you learn tools faster. So don't feel like, well, if everything changes all the time, what's the point? No, no, no. Your background is going to help you learn whatever is new that your company wants to learn, that you personally want to learn. You are going to have an easier time of it than most people because of your experience as a teacher. And again, don't forget, most companies are going to provide training on their specific setup. They're going to want to know that you know what a course authoring tool is, you know what common ones are. They're going to want to know that you know what a learning management system is, what some common ones are. They're going to want to know that you have the basics down, but every company has a different suite. They will help make sure that you are set up for success as you start the job on their specific setup. And don't let that tool anxiety keep you stuck and stalled. Make sure that you subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Share this episode with your teacher friends who are also considering a change, and connect with me on Instagram at the ID Den. Tools are enablers, not requirements for getting started. Your instructional design thinking and skills matter way more than any software mastery. Start simple, pick one, create a project, and expand from there and add on. The best tool is going to be the one that you'll actually use. Don't get sidetracked with all the flashiness and all of the excitement that companies use as a marketing tool to hook you in. Look at the practicality, look at the actual use of something, not the fun stuff that they seem to offer.